That's all there is to it. So drill is now set up. All we have to do now is use it. And the beautiful thing about drill is that there's really no learning curve because it's just standard SQL. So to see what we're working with, let's type in show databases, just like you would in any other SQL database. And it should give us back a list of everything that we have at our disposal. Let's go ahead and expand this to 25 entries so we can see everything together. And you'll see among the other various schemas that are available to us, we have a hive.movielens database available. So within drill terminology, this is called a schema. It is an individual schema of data that lives somewhere. But from a SQL standpoint, you can think of it as just another database name. Okay. So remember, we have hive.movielens available to us, and we also have mongo.movielens available to us. So remember, mongo.movielens is where we put a user's table, or collection in MongoDB parlance, that contains all the user data. And in hive.movielens, we put in a ratings table that contains all of the ratings data. So let's use that, shall we? So let's start by taking a peek inside Hive and see if our data comes back there. So let's type in select star from hive.movielens.ratings limit 10. So a very basic SQL query. We're saying select every column from hive.movielens.ratings and give me back the first 10 results. So limit it to 10 results. So standard SQL here, but under the hood, it's actually talking to Hive to talk to ratings data that was just imported from, tab delimited data. Let's submit that. And that came back fairly quickly considering all the complexity of what it had to do there to actually translate a SQL query into an actual physical plan on Hive. And you can see it works. We're getting back some real data. So through drill, we executed a standard SQL query, not HiveQL, real SQL. And we got back these results: user ID, movie ID, rating in netbox seconds, and looks good to me. Let's do the same thing for MongoDB. So let's type in select star from mongo.movielens.users limit 10. So just like we did with Hive, this time we're going to be selecting from MongoDB, from the users collection that we set up in there from our script in the previous lecture, and get back the first 10 results from that. And this is kind of interesting because we didn't even bother to set up an index on MongoDB in the previous lecture, so it doesn't need it. It's just dealing with plain old flat Mongo data there, and yet comes right back. So remember, the underscore ID is just something that MongoDB automatically inserts for you, a unique ID. And here's all the other stuff, completely unindexed, but it still worked. So we got back some real user data: ages, genders, occupations, user IDs, and zip codes. So drill works with MongoDB as well. Pretty cool. So let's combine it. Let's try and tie it all together. So this is where things get kind of magical, in my opinion. I can actually write a SQL query that does a join between data that lives on MongoDB and on Hive. And if I wanted to, I could join in data from my local file system or HDFS or HBase and all sorts of other stuff. So this is kind of fun stuff. So what should we do? Let's break down how many ratings were provided by each occupation. So that's going to require us to join together this users table to get the list of occupations and what occupation each user ID correlates to. And we can join that with the ratings table, which also has a user ID column that contains all the individual movie ratings. So, I don't want to get into teaching you SQL, but here's what that query would look like. And it's just the same as it would be on a regular relational database. The only difference is that the table names are telling drill where to go to get this data, and it might not even be on the same system. So let's say select u.occupation. U is going to be an alias that I give to the users table on MongoDB later in this query, comma, count, parentheses, star, parentheses, so just getting a count of all the results in total from hive.movielens.ratings. So I'm counting all the ratings, and I'm going to give that an alias of R, okay, space R. Join mongo.movielens.users, and I'll give that an alias of U, on r.userid underscore ID equals u.user underscore ID, group by u.occupation. So, even if you don't understand SQL, if you think about it long enough, you can probably understand what's going on here. So the group by u.occupation means that I want to group together all the users of a given occupation. I'm going to join that users table with the ratings table from Hive on the user ID column. Okay. And what I'm going to get back for results is a table of occupations, unique occupations, and the number of ratings from the ratings table for each occupation. So let's go ahead and kick that off. Make sure I didn't type anything wrong. I think it looks good. And that came back pretty darn quickly. That's actually really impressive. So here's the results. Here's the number of ratings that we have for each individual occupation. And I've run this query a few different ways to make sure that it's actually giving me the right result, and it is. And this gives you a little sense of, the distribution of different users and how many movies they watch, I guess. Not really a terribly practical example here, but it works. You can see that who watches the most movies? Students. Haha. Not too surprising. Well, it's really not too surprising because this data set came from a college, so you would imagine that a lot of the people participating in this data set would be students. And it turns out there's not a whole lot of doctors that played along, or homemakers. Cool. But it works, so that's Apache Drill for you. I think that's pretty awesome. We actually set up a MongoDB table and a table in Hive and tied them together with the same SQL query using Drill, so it's hot stuff. Now that we're done, let's clean up our mess. So I'm going to go back to my terminal prompt here, to my sandbox, and let's shut down Drillbit to do that. Make sure I'm in the right directory. I am. So bin/drillbit.sh stop will shut down Drill. And let's not forget to shut down MongoDB as well. Back to Ambari. All right, so things should be in a state such that it's safe to shut down the sandbox if I so choose. Cool, so that's Drill for you. Up next, we'll talk about Phoenix.